Hello, everybody. My name is Bruce Montgomery, and this is my colleague, Tracy Priest.
Hello, everybody.
And we're with The Road to Retail. On our podcast, Tracy and I hope to offer tips, insights, ideas, and examples for how small, emerging, and challenger CPG, consumer packaged goods, brands can build their business. Everything from determining if you're ready to grow, where to start, how to prove it online, how to go about securing distribution at a national retailer, driving your business with the end consumer, and how to go about finding an investor if that's important to you. The bottom line is, we would love to help you be successful by highlighting the many important factors that go into establishing and growing your brand.
Bruce and I have been working in CPG commercial operations for over 30 years, working on brands of all sizes. By commercial operations, we mean sales, marketing, trade marketing, new product development, broker and distributor management, new product development, brand M&A, and financing. As a part of our show, we bring our guests that are brand founders and leaders, agencies, Amazon specialists, sales agents, contract manufacturers, retailers, and investors to discuss their experiences and share their insights with the audience.
To keep up with the show, please subscribe to the Road to Retail podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or YouTube. Leave us a review and consider sharing the show with a friend or colleague that may benefit from the content. You can also check out our website to learn more at www.road2retail.com and follow The Road to Retail on LinkedIn. We would love to have you along for the ride. Looking to scale or launch your supplement or skincare brand? Eagle Labs Incorporated, based in Florida, offers full-service NSF-certified contract manufacturing of capsules, tablets, powders, liquids, gummies, and lotions. All of their manufacturing takes place in the USA. From R&D and formulation to packaging and fulfillment, Eagle Labs provides scalable, high-quality production that meets FDA and NSF standards. To learn more, contact Michael Law, Chief Commercial Officer at Eagle Labs at michael.law@eaglelabsinc.com, EAGLELABSINC, Michael Law, eaglelabs.com, or text him at 203-242-6417.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the latest episode of Road to Retail. Good morning, Bruce. Good to see you.
Hello, Tracy. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing fantastic. We've got a great episode today. I'm very excited about this. So tell us who we have today.
Well, today we're joined by the founder of Avi Foods, Miss Maggie Olczyk. Maggie, how are you? Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me, guys. It's a pleasure.
So we're gonna dive in here, but at the end, folks, we'll give you a little warm up. Maggie is our first commercial airline pilot, so that's her side hustle. Her brand here is her real job that she loves and cherishes. So we'll talk about that at the end. But Maggie, why don't you give us a little background on yourself, and then what led to the idea to launch Avi Foods, if you don't mind.
Absolutely. So Avi Foods began in about 2020 was when the vision started. Of course, everyone's life got drastically affected during that time, including my own. Flying kind of came to a halt, so I had a lot of free time on my hands. It was around that time also that my parents were diagnosed with diabetes. And the alternative or the solution that they were given was really to rely heavily on very expensive medication monthly for life. And of course, we wanted to have a little bit of a different outlook for them. I got really interested in cooking and baking, mostly because prior to being grounded, I was flying internationally overseas pretty much every week. And it was there that I became very familiar with a little bean called Lupini beans. And these beans are incredibly nutritious, really good for your gut health, for your heart health. And most importantly, they have been around for centuries. In Europe, in the Middle East, Australia, they have been very well known. In the US, not so much. So they coincidentally happen to be very good for people that are diabetic because they're low carb, very nutritiously dense. They have all 9 amino acids, etc. But they're just really good for you. So I decided to make a plethora of items during COVID when I wasn't flying. And that resulted in many different snacks created on a daily basis because I'm unable to sit still for very long. And through that, people really gravitated towards the nutritional profile. They were really tasty snacks. Um, and I decided to make it so often that friends and family wanted it on such a frequent basis that I had to joke with them and tell them I would start charging them. So it materialized. People wanted to pay. I started small, of course, with farmers markets, and then grew pretty quickly to finding a co-manufacturer because once the flying picked up again, I just didn't have the time really to spend in the kitchen that I did in the beginning.
That's awesome. I love that. So, so Maggie, tell us a little about, did you like see a gap in the market? Did you do any kind of consumer research? I mean, the backstory is just great, and I love that you shared that with our, small emerging brand audience. But obviously, it came out, through a family, need, which a lot of brands, that's how they start. There's a need. So, did you do any research, or did you see, hey, there's nothing like this on the market? Share a little bit about that with us.
Sure. I did notice there was a gap. So we all knew that once, this period of time kind of moved on and we got through COVID, life would return back to normal. And I knew people would begin to go out and live their normal lives. Uh, and that the need for snacks that were better for you, healthier for you, particularly ones that didn't raise your blood glucose and that were tailored towards folks that did not want a sugary, healthy version of a snack. Granola predominantly is marketed as healthy, but it's really not because when you flip over the package, you'll see a ton of added sugar. If there isn't a lot of sugar, it's really calorie dense. So I wanted to create something that could be used, one, for people when they are busy again and on the go, a great nutritious breakfast they could throw on top of yogurt, in milk as a cereal, or just take the bag to go with them. And selfishly, I wanted something for myself that would keep me full for hours that customs wouldn't take away. I wanted something, I fly so much, and particularly people that also have professions that may not be in the pilot space, that do travel or do drive or are constantly on the go. It's really hard to find snacks that kind of check every box. So I was very deliberate with wanting, one, to cater to the diabetic community, the low carb community, but also to people that did suffer from gluten or grain sensitivities, wanted a low sugary snack, wanted something high protein and especially high fiber. So I think doing that market research initially truly was pivotal, because if there isn't a need, you don't want to get into a category that's overly saturated. And when you go onto into any grocery store and you walk down particularly the granola aisle, you will see a plethora of granolas on the shelf, but absolutely nothing that is made from a bean. So I think having that differentiator is really critical.
Absolutely. We talk about that all the time on the podcast about being different.
Yeah, and good for you for doing the research. We touch base with many brands that just either don't want to spend any money or any time. They just want to start selling. And kind of when they run into a wall and break their nose, they go, man, that hurt. And then they take a breath and they start trying to figure out what's going on. So, Maggie, you already talked about what we call the brand's meaningful point of difference. So that's really great. And you alluded to this, but it'd be great to talk about it a little further. So when considering the move into retail, and as you said, you go into a retailer and there's this wall of granolas, how have you positioned Avi Foods and kind of what's your two-pager pitch to those retailers as to why you're different and why they should carry you?
Yeah, I think the differentiator truly is being unlike anything else that is offered. So when people, look at Avi, the first thing they see is it's made from a nutritious, high protein bean. That's one. We don't add any sugar. So that's two. It's able to stay on people's low glycemic index, and it's just, yeah, it just meets every most dietary restrictions. So many people have so many different ailments today. It's almost impossible to make everyone happy. There will always be someone that will look at a package and find fault with it, but I think we do a really great job appealing to a mass of people.
Oh, very well said. Because when Tracy and I've interviewed a lot of retailers, they talk about the need to be different. Then they talk about making sure that the brand knows that there's a consumer out there. We're going to talk in a bit about how to get the word out, but it needs to be different and incremental to their category. One of the terms Tracy and I were told that I'll just never forget. We had a buyer at a very large retailer, and this person said, "I don't need any more cut and paste brands. How are you different?" Tracy?
Yeah, so let's talk about a brick and mortar retail for a few minutes. So, what criteria did you use to determine like where to go first and what retailers really fit the brand the best? That you said, hey, these are the retailers I want to go to first and partner with. So, what criteria did you use and where did you go first?
That's a great question. I think every entrepreneur has their dream list of stores and retailers they would love to be in. The reality, however, is really different. So I would love to be in Whole Foods, in a Sprouts, in Central Market, just to name a few. There's literally dozens I have on my list that I won't spend time mentioning all, but it's also incredibly difficult to get their attention.
Yeah.
That is prime real estate in the natural space, particular. So, to answer your first question or part of the question, I believe initially for my product in particular, because you're still small, you're still growing, and it is a premium brand. A premium brand usually results in a premium price tag. So you have to focus on stores where the consumer is maybe a little bit more well versed in the better for you product and that category and space. And they're a little bit more susceptible to spend their hard-earned dollars on things that they know will cost more than a traditional or a conventional grocery store. So I try to focus on the natural space first, and then move on to local independent stores, bodegas, markets. Paying attention to where those stores are located as well makes a difference. I hate to say it, but if it's an area that's a little bit more affluent, also helps because those folks are already used to paying kind of the premium price tag. So everything makes a little bit of a difference. Now, where I ended up being in my first retailer was a little bit different than what I envisioned. But truthfully, they wanted a product that could be their one better for you product that they could offer their customers in a slew of different brands kind of in a similar segment. So mine was the first differentiating, and that was tricky. That was a little bit nerve-wracking because it also I also came with a premium price tag. So I was the most expensive on their shelf. And it was a risk that I thought was worth taking, and so far it has panned out well. But when you're starting out, you know what the entrepreneur envisions and the opportunities presented to themselves or presented to you could be vastly different.
Yeah, for sure. That's great to hear.
Well, it's very clever because to the folks out there, you've heard us talk about this before, and Maggie just pointed it out, making sure that there's a match demographically to the retailers where your product's going to be and your product. The example Tracy and I use a lot is if you're a high-end skincare product, you probably don't want to be in the dollar channel. That's just not a good match. They probably wouldn't take you to begin with, but you're not plowing the field properly and setting yourself up for the best chance for success. So Maggie, a brand like yours crossing multi-channels, how do you, as the founder, how do you keep straight and think about your direct-to-consumer website, a presence on Amazon, and now as you start building out your business in brick and mortar, how do you kind of avoid channel conflict, or how do you manage across those channels, and the importance of at least trying to keep some control over your retail pricing? Talk to us about that a bit, please.
So, with regard to retail pricing, unfortunately, I can only make suggestions and we can negotiate on the back end
Right.
what I hope the price will end up on the shelf. Ultimately, that is up to the retailer. And I'd have to say, with bigger box chain stores, it's a little bit easier to navigate those waters. With independents, you are kind of left to their mercy as to what will ultimately happen when your product lands up on their shelf. Thankfully, it's a smaller footprint unless you're dealing with a chain again. But once it reaches that level, I think you have a little bit more levers you can pull. So I think effective communication with the retailer and having a common understanding of where you would ideally like to land, or at least some sort of a reasonable range, is really crucial. With regard to things like Amazon and the website, I try to keep actually all avenues very similar because it keeps it consistent, and I believe it trains the consumer to look at all avenues, whatever is their preference. They can get it at the same price wherever they go. If you start maneuvering those prices to differ substantially, I think you're training the consumer to go towards one channel predominantly over others. And I think ultimately for your business, that will be long term detrimental to the health of your overall brand.
Yeah, that's very true. The other thing it will lead to is phone calls from especially brick and mortar when they say, Maggie, what's going on? Amazon's $3 a unit cheaper than me. Don't you love me too? And then it gets back to your point. I can only do so much to control my retail pricing once you turn it loose.
And
Trace?
and you negatively affect yourself in the long run because those phone calls will start happening. Consumers will stop shopping at those stores, and guess what? They'll stop carrying you. So you will it will be like a fulfilling prophecy where you're now hurting your own company.
Yeah,
That's true.
absolutely. That's a key point, Maggie, that I don't think some brand owners don't understand is that the retailer controls the price because it's their real estate. So great point. So let's take a step back a little bit and talk about what you've learned about running a business day to day. Maybe tell our audience a little bit about the highs and lows and what you've learned on your journey so far.
Oh my goodness. And what a journey it has been. I think entrepreneurship is incredible. And as a matter of fact, I joke to my friends that have small children that I believe everyone should get into a business early on because the level of rejection you get as an entrepreneur,
Right.
I believe is unlike any other business you could possibly be in. I get so many no's. It doesn't faze me anymore, which is really good. I think it builds character, it builds determination and grit. But also, what it has taught me is how to be organized and work more efficiently, how to lead people in a manner that will help not only your business grow, but help them. Uh, as entrepreneurs, we're in a very wonderful position of being able to hire folks and create jobs, which is amazing. So that has been very rewarding, um, and it also truly makes you. If you had any sort of ego prior to starting a business, I believe running a business will get rid of all of that.
Will
So
humble you.
exactly.
So Maggie, what have you learned over your time building Avi Foods that has made you a better business leader? I mean, you just talked about having to be resilient and, taking those hockey pucks off the forehead or baseballs, you get hit, you got to get back up. So what's it taught you?
I think running a business has taught me, number one, to knowing what makes sense to allocate to others, kind of learning where my strengths and weaknesses are. And also, more importantly, I would say not only allocating things that I'm not good at, but also things that I don't enjoy doing. There's a plethora of things that I think I do a pretty decent job at that I absolutely hate. And when you're not enjoying those precious, what I would call not minutes, because it's usually hours of your day doing, you start to get a little bit negative and maybe resentful of the business as a whole. So I think just learning where to put different things onto different people and knowing when to ask for help as well. I think entrepreneurs in particular, they wear like we wear so many hats, and I think we want to do a good job at so many different in so many different areas. It's hard to give the reins over to someone else that may be better at it. So being able to recognize that, I believe, is critical also.
That's great.
Well, we're recording this on Monday, May 5th. And what Maggie just said just happened with one of the most famous companies in the US when Warren Buffett, at his annual shareholders meeting, unbeknownst to anyone, his last comment was it's time for him not to be the CEO anymore. So he announced turning it over. So there's an example of someone who maybe is thinking he's losing his fastball a little bit. So he's passing it on to someone who's still got the juice.
Absolutely. So Maggie, talk to us a little bit about your growth strategy. So how has it evolved over the recent months and year, whatever that is, to, do you look for growth in gaining more retail distribution, expanding maybe your flavors or even new innovations? So talk to us a little bit about how the growth strategy is come,
Sure.
come along.
I think in the beginning, particularly the growth strategy with Avi was very grassroots um focused. And that was twofold. One, I didn't want to necessarily spend a lot of financial, a lot of finances in an area that I didn't know whether or not I would succeed in yet. I wanted to do market research and test the audience and do markets myself in particular to understand what the consumer was liking about the product, what they weren't, what they were gravitating towards. You learn a lot by hearing people sample when you demo and hearing their conversations on the sidelines when they think you're not paying attention. And of course, I could have a conversation with another vendor, but one ear is always listening to the feedback that I'm getting. So I think that was really important because it taught me what people were gravitating towards and what they weren't, how the packaging should reflect the messaging, whether my points are getting across, how the taste is, of course, what they think about the price point. So in the beginning, it was very much market oriented, which was really great. However, as you grow and as you scale, it's really difficult to do those in person and to grow in a very efficient and I would say quick manner. So as I've grown, I've decided to partner with groups that I thought would be able to help me present to a more targeted audience, that being dietitians, people that are diabetic or keto, which has been really important and critical in the growth because that was, and I believe still is, one of my target audiences.
Sure.
And then as I grew from that, the next segment has been ads through social media of various sorts. So actually putting dollars behind ads to the public, people that have never met me, have never heard me speak, don't know anything about the brand, and then learning what to channel in those avenues to get the messaging across.
So Maggie, you just started to wander into this area of our next topic. So you mentioned social media. Now that your business is, and again, as an entrepreneur, you might be thinking, "Oh, Bruce, it's not that way at all." But let's say the words I'm going to use are you're starting to get some traction, you're getting your groove down, you've done some market research. How are you getting the word out, social media, et cetera? What marketing vehicles are you using? And then how are you evaluating whether they're working or not? And as you see a little bit of data, how are you course correcting or changing?
So this is a pretty new avenue for us as far as putting money behind ads. So I don't have too much information to go off of other than we will have various ads that are really similar that may change a little bit with the demographic that we're targeting. And also the messaging may also change on a variety of very similar assets. And as that data comes back, we're able to evaluate, how many people clicked on the ads, how many people ended up purchasing, et cetera. And also I allocate a certain specific codes to different groups of people and different groups that we end up partnering with. And you're able to get an idea based off of who's actually utilizing those codes, where the customer is coming from. So that all really helps.
That's great.
Interesting. So tracking the business. All right, Trace.
So yeah, so let's get real here for a moment, Maggie. So as you know, starting a brand is really, really hard. It is not for the faint of heart, for sure, and it's a long journey. So maybe talk to our audience a little bit about, you know, when do you say this just isn't going to work out? I got to pull the plug. I got to walk away because, like you mentioned earlier, this is like having a baby. You've got a baby. This is yours. That brand is your baby. It's kind of hard to give it up or give it away or do whatever. So talk to our audience a little bit about your thoughts on when do you say, I've got to move on.
I have to say, of all the questions I believe that an entrepreneur can come across and all the difficult decisions that we have to make on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, this one has got to be the toughest one of all, because there's this level of excitement and hope and all of these things you imagine doing with your business when you first launch. And it's inspiring and it's really exciting. And you have this certain vision that you would like to come to fruition. And then as you get further and further in the process, it can go a number of different ways. I think entrepreneurship to me is very closely related to gambling.
Yeah.
The reason being is it's really difficult to know when to walk away. You
Hmm.
think that, that event that you went to when you met this one person that has a slew of contacts, or this one retailer that you just landed that gave you that big PO, is maybe that could bring you to that next level. Or you just, I mean, it could be a number of different things, a number of different people that come across your daily life. I think the most important thing that I keep thinking of is, does this make you happy? Because uh, if you wake up annoyed or resentful or extremely tired, and affecting you and your mental health is one thing. And then I would also say, if it starts to affect other people in your life in not a positive way or manner, that to me is a really big sign that maybe you should think about stepping away, or perhaps taking a break if you don't want to wrap it up. But it's tricky. It's really tricky. And the other thing I would say is, when you think of what you do day in and day out, and all of the things that are involved in running a business, all the time, all the financial resources, all the mental gymnastics you have to do to to pull all the levers and make sure everything is functioning as it should. Uh, if if you would think to yourself, would I apply for this job if it was being offered, and for the pay that you're receiving, would I actually take this job? Um, and the answer would be a resounding no. That's also a really good sign to say, hey, because there is no guarantee that any of it will work out, really.
Right.
You have to accept the fact that it's really a series of meeting the right people, doing the hard work, but also a very good portion of just being at the right place at the right time. So luck does play a really big role into all of this.
Which is, I love your analogy about gambling. So I kind of, in my mind, I see going to the roulette table and putting all your chips on red. You, and I'll know you agree with this. When you have a brand, you got to be all in. You can't have your toe in. You can't, just be partially in. You've got to be all in.
Correct, correct. And I'll say, as someone who has another full-time occupation, that part uh, is very tricky. And if I know from some people may view it as, oh, well, this is just a hobby. I wish it felt like a hobby, but it definitely feels like another full-time job. For me, I have the luxury of being able to get help and afford the help to move those different levers that I am simply just unable due to time constraints, and where my job really takes me and needs me. But for people that aren't able to do that, I think initially it's okay to have your kind of ducks separated, and have your focus on the job at hand until you're able to grow your baby to have it be financially self-sufficient.
Right.
So many of us do that. It helps pay the bills until you're able to make it. But at a point, you have to kind of come to a crossroads and say, am I working around the clock keep putting money into the business, but not seeing it return, you know, what I had hoped it would be at this point.
Right. Great insight. Bruce?
Well, those are also only really questions you can answer yourself, right? You can take all the data points and then it's like, man, one more quarter. One more quarter, I'm just going to hang in there. Or this was the big break. Good thing I hung in there one more quarter. All right, Maggie, we're rounding third base, heading for home. Even the Cubs and White Sox occasionally round third base and get home there. Maggie's in Chicago. So who's had the greatest influence on your career and what did this person do for you that has stuck with you over time, whether that's Avi or in your other job?
I think I have come across, I wouldn't say it's been one person. I think it's been a plethora of people. With regard to aviation, I think it's such a different aspect, it's such a different career. It doesn't fully translate to what I've learned in the business world. The persons that, because it's a group of people that I'm envisioning, have actually been folks that I have met through different cohorts, different networking events that have become incredibly close friends, that we just share this camaraderie. I wanted to say we commiserate in misery together. I joke, but it's really nice to have an avenue of people that you can bounce ideas from. You can actually talk about the struggles. You could talk about your wins and also setbacks and get ideas from. There's something to be said about someone that's also going through the same thing, meaning they're working day in and day out to grow their business. They're writing the checks, they're making the phone calls, they're showing up at the demos, they're making the invoices, they're making the deliveries. There's really something special about sharing that experience together. So I wish I could say it's been one person. It's actually been a plethora of people that I have met along the way while doing this.
Well, that's good. The share groups are really, really super helpful. And first off, you walk in there and you go, gosh, I'm not the only crazy person. Look at all these people here. All right, Tracy, fun question. Then we're going to talk a little bit of airplanes before we let Maggie go.
Absolutely. So this is our fun question of the day, Maggie. So tell us who your favorite sports team, band, or brand is and why.
Oh my goodness. That's a tough one. That is a tough one. I think I'm gonna go with with one of my favorite bands. I have many, but I don't know if you guys have ever heard of a group called Slightly Stupid.
We have
Uh,
not.
What'd you call Tracy?
No.
so the name of this band makes me giggle every time, which is one of the reasons I adore them. But they just have really nice, relaxing music that makes me feel like I'm in the Caribbean and somewhere other than Chicago in January when it's cloudy and the
Cold.
wind is blowing sideways. So that's, yeah. And of course, the Cubbies. Come on. I'm from Chicago.
There
There's
you go.
nothing better than Wrigley in the summer.
Oh, that is very true. Very true. That is
All right, Maggie. So we got to talk a little bit of airplane. You are our first commercial airline pilot. So a tiny bit of rapid fire. I mean, it's really cool to see. I have daughters. It's nowhere near as rare as it was when I started my business career to see female pilots. I think it's super cool. Who was it that lit that in you? Like your mom or dad or some, or you joined the Air Force? How did you say, you know what? I'm gonna fly big ass jets one day?
It's very funny. So I was the track captain in high school, and my senior year, I was the only one that made it to state, and the morale was a little bit low on my part. We had a few girls and a nice team that went my junior year, and then as we were kind of going through the season, it was tough. It was tough to kind of break through that next level. And my coach made a deal with me. He said, Maggie, if you make it to state, I have a surprise for you. My best friend from childhood is going to be in town, and I have something for you that I think you would love, but you just got to make it to state. And I forget the exact words he used, but dumb luck, I made it to state. And he's like, okay, I'm gonna honor my promise. So I met him at our local airport one day, and it was the runway resembled the length of my parents' driveway, just to give you an idea how big and spacious this place was. So
Oh man.
we met his buddy, and we crawl into this mosquito of an airplane, and we took off and we flew around my high school track, my high school. I remember calling my mom as we were circling the house. She ran out of the house, was waving in the backyard. And by the time we landed, I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to make it happen, but this is what I'm going to do when I graduate. This is it. So that's how it started.
Well, that's incredible. So, folks, Maggie flies the Boeing 757 and 767. So she has graduated from the Mosquito aircraft
No doubt.
for sure. So tell us a little bit, tell us about some of your favorite airports to fly into, and like the town when you have like 2 days off, where are you like, all right, I'm here. This will be good.
So I have to say, one of my favorite airports and one of the most challenging to land in, that I don't currently do on the plane that I'm on, but in my previous life as a corporate pilot, I would go into Aspen, Colorado quite frequently, and Telluride as well. And that was very challenging. It's essentially one way in, the same way out. It's very high terrain. It's usually pretty tricky weather, low clouds, winds. So that was a sporty execution and really a lot of fun because it was challenging. So it kept you on your toes. Present day, one of my favorite places to fly into, both for how you approach the area, because on the arrival, you're actually a portion of it you're in Germany, and the other portion you're in Switzerland. But when you come into Zurich, it's just beautiful. It's stunning. I think I have this admiration for the mountains, so I really love that. And then on the layover there, oh my goodness, it's incredible because the town is beautiful. Even though Zurich is one of the bigger cities of the country, it's still very quaint. It feels very homey. It feels very welcoming. And then you can hop on a train and be in a plethora of other towns in about half an hour. So,
All right, so last flying question. Let's keep it in the US for the group here. When you land, what airport are you like, my God, driving around here on the ground is going to be longer than the flight? Is there any place that's just a completely disorganized basket case of an airport?
I have a guess on this, but I'm going to let Maggie answer it.
my hometown. Sometimes it takes me longer to taxi to and from our gate or to and from the runway than it does in rush hour traffic from home to the airport. So, Chicago O'Hare, I love, hate you.
I was going to guess Atlanta or Newark, one of the New York airports.
New York is a close second. Atlanta, at least the weather is nice. But when you add the snow, the sleet, the rain on top of just everything else, it makes it extra special.
Oh my gosh. Well, Maggie, this has been really, really great. How can people get in touch with you to learn more about Avi Foods?
Yeah, so if anyone has any questions or would inquire about absolutely anything, please reach out to hello@avi-foods.com.
All right. Well, thank you so much. All right, Tracy, the big finish.
Absolutely. Again, Maggie, you were awesome. Great insight. And I know our audience is going to really love it. So continue to follow us on our LinkedIn page, as well as our Spotify and Apple, and also our website, www.roadtoretail.com. We post every Tuesday, so look for this episode soon. And thanks again for joining us, Maggie. And Bruce, as always, great to see you.
Thanks again, Maggie. Good luck out there, folks.